Hello and welcome to Blueprints for Life. I'm Peter C. Hayward.
I'm Nicole Cutler.
And this is the podcast about making your brain work for you with models and systems and theories and stuff. This is the podcast with stuff in it, the one and only. How are you, Nicole?
I'm great. I had therapy for the first time in like 2 years, which is a longer story. And now I'm fixed. All good. All you need is once every 2 years. It's really effective.
I was doing therapy, when I started doing therapy, I think I did it once every week or once every 2 weeks. And then after a year, my therapist and I were both like, look, this is going great. Let's go down to once a month. And now I'm once every 2 months. And once every 2 months is like perfect for me because it means that when I do the therapy, like I'm not working through any big issues. My life is pretty great. But it means that when I check in with my therapist, whose name is Janet, she's wonderful. She gets like an update on the last 2 months. And it's like having that friend you only see every 3 months. And like, hey, what happened with that really intense thing? You're like, oh, I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just like really good, like going on a walk, like you're forced to be alone with your thoughts. How am I doing? And not just like being asked in passing, right? And you just asked me that question. I think I gave you a bigger answer than intended. But usually, if someone asks how you're doing, you think, okay, how you doing? Therapy forces you to sit down for an hour and like, how am I doing?
Yeah, I had therapy 2-3 weeks ago, and I was in a funk. I was in a foul mood. And after an hour of talking to Janet, I was like, my life is amazing. I am exactly where I want to be on pretty much every front. And it just like, it really uplifted me. Like, it wasn't even any particular like tools to work with things. It was just to like, sharing your life with someone is like, oh, my life is pretty rad. It's a pretty rad life, Nicole.
I think it's safe to say that anyone who's interested in listening to this podcast should be in therapy.
Yes, we should do an episode about therapy. But today's is actually kind of adjacent, I would argue.
If we're talking about our brain, I'd argue that everything is kind of slightly adjacent. But yes, today's
brain-based podcast is somehow adjacent to therapy. How did that happen? What are we talking about today, Nicole?
We are talking about zooming out, which is kind of what you do in therapy. See, I tied that all together.
It is very much what you do in therapy. Now, I think zooming out is a unique to us phrase. I don't think this has like a pre-existing internet anything. I don't know if you came up with it, if I came up with it, if we co-developed it, but I think zooming out is, if you only get one thing out of this podcast, I think zooming out is the most broadly applicable, useful, actionable, life-improving thing that you can do. Not to oversell it, but it's amazing. And I can't go back. I can never go back.
It's just such a great framework for like what's actually going on.
So I'm going to tell my customary pre-explanation anecdote. I was in Buffalo, New York, and I was sitting in a cafe and I was listening to a couple fight behind me. And I don't even know if they would have called it fighting, like bickering or like sniping at each other, like attacking each other. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I understand how couples counseling works now. Because I'd always been like, how can a stranger come into a couple and like know more about how they should interact than those two people? And after I learned zooming out, I was like, yes, you absolutely can. Because listening to this couple bicker, I was like, neither of you are listening to each other. Neither of you are talking about the same thing. You're having two tangential conversations at each other and both getting more and more frustrated. And I didn't know these people. These were literal strangers who I've never met before or since. And yet I could tell you exactly what was happening in that conversation.
I think you're officially a therapist now.
So, zooming out, I would describe, and you're welcome to come up with a better description if you so desire. I would describe as subtext for the real world. When you learn screenwriting, you learn about subtext, and subtext is not what are people talking about on surface level, but what are they really talking about? I suppose it's just subtext now I think about it. But it's a little more than that. And so you and I actually very recently, I was just at your house. My hair is relatively bleached because I was in your lovely pool. And we were in your pool having a conversation not about the thing, but about the conversation about the thing. And we made a lot of progress. And I think honestly, the next step for us in our friendship, not now on the podcast, but in real life, might be to have the conversation about the thing. And that's what I think of as zooming out. It's when you stop focusing on the very specific issue that's bugging you and say, okay, what's causing this? Or what's happening on a higher level? Or zoom out, what's the bigger picture here? Is that an adequate description of zooming out?
Yeah, I think ultimately we're all humans, and and the things that we're going through at any given time impacts are the way that we're speaking to each other. And if you have that phrase of like zoom out and actually focus on like what is the bigger picture of what's like what's contributing to this feeling, it is such a useful tool. So like as an example, there are plenty of times where it's totally fine that the trash isn't out, right? And then there are times where I am so mad, and I'm so mad that the trash isn't taken out. And it's not that I'm mad that I can't fit this can into the trash can. If I were to zoom out, it's that I feel like I have to be the one to ask about getting the trash. I feel like I'm not an equal partner.
The responsibility lands on you to be, even though the trash is not your job, it's still somehow your job. Mm-hmm. Have we talked about the make a list TikTok? A woman angrily like sings this little song like, I don't want to make a list. We'll put a link in the show notes.
I love her.
Yes.
And obviously I'm not talking about my real husband, I'm talking about my imaginary boyfriend, Trevor Moose, clearly.
Yes.
my real husband's great at taking out the trash. Take out the trash.
But Trevor, useless. So we've talked in the past about self-awareness and how the greatest gift, you know the old stories where the fairies would each bestow like one gift on the kid, and one would be like, my gift is beauty, my gift is whatever. I think the greatest gift that a fairy can bestow on you is self-awareness. It is like zooming out, it's just always, always, always useful. We've told this story before on the podcast, but once I was staying at your house and I was like, hey guys, I'm grumpy. And you and Trevor were both like, this is a weird thing to say. People don't normally know that they're grumpy. And then you were teasing me and I was a little like, I'm not enjoying this. And you're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm grumpy, the thing. And so like, whatever the teasing was, would have been fine any other day, but I was grumpy.
It definitely broke my brain because most people can acknowledge that they're grumpy in hindsight. It's a past feeling, right? Not I'm actively feeling this way. And usually that's I'm just being grumpy and that's the end of it because you're at the tail end and you can look at it in hindsight.
Right.
But it's so rare to be like, I'm actively grumpy and it's still going to affect my mood. I'm just acknowledging it. Like, I don't think I've ever encountered that before.
And so zooming out is sort of like that, but from the outside. So you and I are having a fight about phone chargers, and we're struggling to talk about phone chargers. And firstly, I need people in my life who I can talk to about everything. We've discussed this many times in person, maybe on the podcast. Like, I am bad at not talking about a thing. And so as soon as I encounter that like spikiness, either from you or from me, I'm like, why are we fighting about phone chargers? And the answer is almost never anything to do with phone chargers. So then you zoom out and you're like, oh, you feel like I always take your stuff without permission, and I feel like you're unnecessarily territorial about meaningless stuff, and that phone charger was actually a gift from your grandmother, and it's the last thing she gave you on her deathbed because she was an avid antique phone charger collector. Like, there's always something else going on.
Very specific.
So let's talk about zooming out. So the first step is just having the language. And I think we say this every single episode. Once you have a name for something, it's real. This is the core of so much magic in like folklore and fables and stuff like that. And it's so true. Giraffe person, zooming out, feather brick truck.
This one in particular is really useful because it's almost like a timeout in the middle of a conversation. And if you are both on the same page, understanding this vernacular and willing to, I believe anyone in your life, besides special exceptions for family or whatever, you should be able to have these conversations with, right?
Yes.
And so assuming that as a baseline, you're having an argument, you're having a disagreement. If you both acknowledge that this concept of zooming out, it just kind of like pauses everything, and it doesn't like stop bad feelings from happening, but it gives you this ability to kind of, it's just, for me, my brain like works like a movie and everyone's just frozen. It's like, let's see what's happening here.
Yeah, there's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where Lily and Marshall have a time out for their relationship, but they don't talk about it. They time out and don't talk about it and stop talking about it. And that's not what we're suggesting at all. We're saying like, while you are in the thick of it, and again, for me, it's this feeling of spikiness when I'm like, Nicole, we're talking about phone chargers, yet this feels really icky and awkward and horrible. That's not how we relate. And again, you need the baseline of the shared vernacular and people who you like talking to. You are one of my favorite people on the planet. I love talking about you. Okay. We sometimes have phone conversations that go for hours just because we like diving into each other's brains. That's what the podcast is. An example of these conversations. And so anytime it's not flowing, I'm like, okay, whoa. Let's zoom out and see what's happening. And sometimes the answer is, I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm annoyed at you because of the phone charger. Like sometimes there is a real tangible thing, but more often than not, there's something at a higher level happening that you need to unpick.
I also want to like acknowledge that, especially like if you're in the middle of a fight, it doesn't always undo the feelings in the moment. The feelings in the moment are still very valid. And there are times that like, I need to calm down before I can zoom out. I acknowledge that I need to zoom out, but I still need to calm down. I think there was one point in like 2021, and it was like mid-pandemic or just after the pandemic, and I had babies. And I think we just didn't talk for 6 weeks because I acknowledged that we need to just zoom out because we were having a disagreement, and I fully acknowledge that, but I just still wasn't in the mental space to like really think about it. And I think acknowledging that limitation of like,
yes.
are you in a healthy space to actually zoom out is really important. And if you're not, you shouldn't be fighting about anything anyway.
Yes, the pause is I don't want to say vital component, but a very, very important component of the zooming out, which is like, hey, I need us to stop talking about phone chargers right now. Can we pause that part of the conversation and zoom out? And sometimes the answer is no. No, I am not in a mental state to be able to do that, or I need this phone charger back right now. I don't have time to zoom out.
My phone's dead. I need to get it on this call, right? Sometimes
Yes.
It's really important.
Yes, there are times when it's like, no, this needs to happen right now. But I would say 99%, and we're in a unique situation that we don't live together. Other than this podcast, we don't actually have any like serious entanglements. We just love each other and enjoy spending time with each other and talk as friends. And like, you know, I've said many times, you're basically my sister, and you know, your kids are my kids, and your husband is my husband. That's how.
Wait, I'm your sister, and my kids are your kids. Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Math ain't math in here, buddy.
I like how you had no issue with your husband is my husband. Just the
no,
kids
that's fine.
part.
You're Polly, obviously.
Yeah, that's how it
Trevor's
works.
great.
So we are in a very, very fortunate position. But I do this with everyone in my life. I do this with girlfriends. I do this with business partners. Like, it is a vital part of relating to Peter is understanding zooming out.
I think it's also important to acknowledge that even in those moments where, okay, you can't zoom out, you acknowledge that it's actually the phone charger right this moment because your kid is on fire. You need to call 911, whatever. Trevor Moose is on fire. I'm going to stop at the Trevor Moose references now. I'm acknowledging that like there are some situations in which you can't zoom out in this moment. You need to actually address the topical issue. That doesn't mean that you can't unpack it later and still zoom out later and dissect it.
Yes. So the steps of zooming out are: one, having the language. Congratulations, everyone. You've done that.
You need to go ahead and introduce the language to everyone in your life, and also share this link so that they can also watch this podcast.
Yeah. Send them all the podcast right now. Alyssa was having a issue with someone in the golf club, and so I taught her zooming out. And I honestly don't know if it even resolved that particular one case, but just having the language means that now when Alyssa and I are talking, we've never really had a fight, but at some point we will, because humans be humans. And step one is knowing the language. Done. Check. Step two is identifying when you need to use it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very aware of my feelings. That's a strange sentence to say, but I give them very tangible names. You've heard me talk about like spiky and like...
One might say you're self-aware?
Yeah. I don't actually have great emotional language, but it all makes sense to me. So the spikiness is what I'm looking for, or when I am fixating, when I'm like, I need to, what, you know, as soon as I am locked in and tunnel visioning, that's when I'm like, okay, something else is going on here. That is not a normal part of human conversation for me. I am somewhere on the spectrum, but I've learned to not fixate and insist on having these conversations. And so I need to be able to zoom out and be like, okay, what's happening internally? And then once I have an idea of that, I can bring it, or you can unpack it with the other person, depending on how it goes.
And sometimes you need to unpack it with someone else to get like an independent perspective before you unpack it with that person.
Absolutely.
But you absolutely should be in a position where you can unpack it with that person at some point in the not so distant future. You've mentioned spectrum, and I think that plays very heavily into needing this. Someone who is also neurospicy, I forget that people can lie. I forget that people can present things as fact even when they're not 100% sure that it's fact, or they can believe it to be true even if it's disprovable. And I think that that's a big key of why I sometimes overlook subtext, or I don't catch jokes if they're not so obvious. And being able to zoom out and call the subtext for what it is really, really useful and in overcoming that.
This is why I wanted to do this episode after we did Rules Brain, because Rules Brain is a very, very relevant topic here. Where, you know, with the phone chargers, I wanted to borrow your phone charger, and you were like, well, obviously, if I talk about this with Peter, he will constantly borrow my phone charger at all times, and I will never have a phone charger of my own. And like you not you specifically, but one just gets an idea locked in their head, and if you're in the thick of it, if you're at the base level phone charger conversation, then you just can't get out of that rules brain fixation, like the tunnel vision. You need to zoom out and say like, look, I am operating under these assumptions. And the other person can be like, no, like those assumptions aren't necessarily true. And that's when I say like multiple levels of zooming out can happen, because you can go like, no, they definitely are. No, they're not. Okay, well, let's zoom out and see why you think, you know, what's the assumption about the assumption?
Why do you think I'm incapable of sharing? Well, you got so mad when the phone charger, but this was my grandma's from her deathbed. I don't care if you share literally anything else. Here's my toothbrush, right? You don't know.
No. You would never share your toothbrush.
I would never share my toothbrush.
I know you pretty well by now.
You
I'm
do.
like, whoa, what an example.
Oh, you're like, I've known you for a decade. You've never let me use your toothbrush. There's no way anyone's close enough to you to get your toothbrush.
I just don't tell you when I'm borrowing it. It's much easier. And so the zooming out is, you know, what are my assumptions? And again, this is why it can be helpful to unpack it with a person or unpack it with someone else. You and I are so often this person. A few years back, you were having a dispute at the golf club, and you came to me and you said, hey, this member of the golf club, he wants this. And I'm like, well, hang on. Do you actually know that he wants this? Like, I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm not even saying like this is not true, but I'm saying like, you've come at me with this assumption. What is this based on? And it's just so helpful to be able to unpack it with someone who is a third party and go, well, the person said this and this. And I'm like, okay, that could mean that they want whatever it is. Or it could mean X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh yeah, it could mean that. Or like, no, I know this person pretty well. They definitely want this. So yeah, the first step is, like I said, the assumptions and unpacking what the possibilities are.
And sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's a trauma response. Sometimes it's my ex-husband just hit all my chargers because he didn't want me to have a phone. And I went into panic mode and forgot that that's not an issue anymore.
Yes. Trauma response is one of those tools. I learned that from a friend a few years back. And actually, I'll tell you, it was about sports and dogs. I used to really hate dogs.
I thought you hated all animals, like all pets in general.
Yeah. And my reaction was too much. It was over the top. I realized it's impossible to believe I'm too much. And so my friend said, hey, Peter, this incredibly strong hatred of animals, this is a trauma response, what's happening, which is a form of zooming out. And I went, well, I realized that, I'll tell you, I'll use you as therapy. I was reacting to the fact that everyone likes animals and you have to like animals. And media is always like, if you don't like animals, you're a bad person. Only bad people don't like animals. And so I had leaned so hard into like, well, I don't like animals, that it had become not necessarily traumatic, but I'd entrenched. I'd really taken it on as a core part of my identity. I hate animals. That's who I am. That's what I'm about. And it wasn't healthy. It was not a healthy level of animal distaste. It wasn't useful. And now I have many animals that I like, humans excluded. My friend Frankie has a little tiny dog, like this big, teeny tiny dog. Oh. I love this dog. I sit on the couch and it comes cuddles on me while I work. And I swear, 5 years ago, I'd have been like, get off, you stupid dog, take this dog away. I would have had the rules brain, I hate animals, that's who I am. And now I'm like, no, I don't like being yapped at. I'm spectrumy enough that loud noises stress me out. But teeny tiny little dogs wanting to cuddle while I work, great, bring it on, no issue. One of my girlfriends loves dogs, and if we ever live together, I will have dogs. And I won't just be like, oh, she has dogs and I resent them every moment of the day. I will treat them like my dogs. That's the healthy, mature adult thing to do. But I needed someone externally to be like, what is going on here? Let's zoom out to understand.
And honestly, like that's pretty much exclusively what I use therapy for. And not to say that you can't have friends that you talk about these things and who challenge you, but like when I sit down in therapy, I'm like, tell me what I don't want to hear. Like I don't want someone who's going to yes man me, who's going to chat GPT, pat me on the back and say how smart I am. I want someone who's like, why do you think that way?
Nicole, I will never tell you that you're smart. I promise you.
Thank you.
That's friendship right there.
This is why we're friends. This is you keep me down a peg. So I think just having someone to, what's actually going on here? And I can go down a rabbit hole about my therapy session.
Do it.
I was debating a big life choice and how I should be grateful for things, even though I'm stressed, even though all these things. And my therapist said, you're not saying the word, but I'm hearing the word should a lot. You should be grateful. You should be doing this. You should want that. You're not saying it, because I think on a high level, like, you understand that there isn't should, but there's still an implication of it. And so zooming out and like recognizing, like, oh, I'm avoiding it, but I'm not avoiding it. I'm doing it. I'm just using different words for it. Was really helpful.
So we, as mentioned, are in this very, very fortunate position of not actually being that entangled. The only times we even get close to fights is where we are. Oh, can I talk about the logo? That's a good example.
Sure.
So this show has a logo. Currently, as we speak, it's my face and only my face. The show that we both host has me and only me as a logo. And you came to me and you were like, hey, my feelings are really hurt by this, which is completely valid because I said, let's do a show together, and then went off and got a logo made of my face. And I said, whoa, okay. Before we go into the logo, let's zoom out and talk about like what's happening here in the context and the situation. And the context was that this show was not going to be you and me originally. It was going to be me and a different friend. And I was going to pay her to have this as a vehicle for Peter. That's why it's called the Blue Prince Show, the Blue Prince.
Oh, you're literally blue and in Prince. Now you must wear Prince on all episodes.
No, Prince, like a royal family. It's a pun. Maybe it doesn't work in the American accent.
No.
My friend's British who I was going to do the show with. And so I got this logo made well before you were on board, and that's why it was a Peter vehicle. Now it's a Peter and Nicole vehicle. It's very different. And the thing, I live and die on having a record of stuff. I have such a bad memory. So I went through our chat and I found the message where I said, "Here's the logo, Nicole," months ago, like before you were on board, and then never sent the picture. And neither of us noticed. But I literally was like, hey, look at this logo. And then the conversation moved on and we never noticed that I never sent it. But in my mind, that had checked the box of, I have sent you the logo. You have seen it. This should not be a surprise. Whereas from your end, the first time you saw the logos when the episode went live. And from that, like from zooming out and being like, okay, now that we have all the context, let's go back in. You were pretty fine with it, I think. Like, obviously, we're going to get it updated and get your face in it.
I mean, you even said that if I wanted to coordinate it, you'd do it immediately. I didn't actually care about the logo. I don't like, obviously, as you can see, it hasn't changed yet. Eventually it was the implication that I was second fiddle.
Yes.
That was not intended.
Such a textbook example of zooming out. You came in with and again, I just want to reiterate, completely legitimate feeling, completely legitimate complaint. And before we could talk about the thing, we had to talk about the level up from it, which was all the context and the 6 months and the blah, 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 and the other person. And then once we'd zoomed out, we were able to zoom back in, and that conversation just dissolved. That happens so often.
I feel like it's only in the last 5 years that I've learned to like take a step back and like zoom out on my own before I even approach you. Cause like I can see myself 5 years ago saying, what the hell, Peter? Like that's a shitty move or whatever. You know, I could imagine, I can see myself having a quicker, more emotional reaction, but I didn't. I sat like, why does that bother me? Does it bother me? Is it a problem? But why?
And once we zoomed out, that the pinpoint of what it was no longer a relevant factor. So the zoomed in went away. Now, again, we're going to fix it. This is a real thing. But yeah, I just love that one because it is literally, we started the small conversation. We said, whoa, there's there's something happening here. Let's zoom out, give context, zoom back in, and it's solved. And again, so many times with you, with other people, once you zoom out and you go, oh, you're not trying to steal my grandmother's charger. Your phone's just dead. Then when you zoom back in, it's like, well, of course you can use it. Like, why would that be a problem? And it's almost funny because you're like, why would that be an issue when 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, it felt like the end of the world. It felt like the most significant thing.
It's one of those things that you go to therapy about and 2 months later, you're like, oh, that was a thing? I forgot that was a thing.
I want to talk about lenses. Lenses is another Peterism that, maybe it's not, I don't know. I use it all the time. And it is a really useful tool for zooming out. So there are different lenses that you can use to examine stuff. So just to use the very basic ones, gender, race, age, Trauma. Trauma is a lens. Like you can look at stuff through all these different lenses. And so when I'm in the process of zooming out, especially when I'm unpacking with something else, so you had this issue with the golf club, and I think we literally had the conversation of like, okay, do you think it could be a gendered thing? And you thought about it and you went, no, I don't think it's a gendered thing. And, race wasn't really a factor, but it was like, okay, well, could it be this? Could it be that? And to me, it feels like, when you're at the optometrist and they're just flicking through the different lenses, and eventually you're like, that one, that's what it is. We found it.
Funny, because I'm like playing 20 questions in my brain with my own memories. I'll find out later.
It was a golf club. The lens theory, which again I use on a daily basis, is great for not only solving your own stuff but helping someone else. So you come to me with an issue, and I'm like, okay, well let's flip through the lenses. There's a game design book. I think it's literally called the Book of Lenses, and it's just like, hey, look at your game from this perspective, from this perspective, from this perspective.
I mean, it's literally why it's so useful to talk to a third party, an unbiased person, except being self-aware enough and aware of the people that you interact with that you can do that without having to be prompted.
And one super helpful thing is to get more lenses to keep in your collection. So I can't even think of a recent one, but there has definitely been times where, here's one. In the early days of Jelly Bean Games, I had no money and no success and was doing very poorly. But someone was like, Peter, you're a publisher. You have a window to the world of games that internally I was like, I don't. I'm just a guy who moved from Australia and started putting games on Kickstarter. I don't have magic powers that anyone else has. But understanding that even if I don't think it's true, other people were like, Peter, the publisher, that was a very, very useful lens to put into my relationships and my interactions with people and be like, oh, that explains why this is happening because of the publisher lens.
Another a really common lens that people get, you either have it or you don't, is like the lens of being a parent. I was a much less patient person, much less empathetic person for like struggles, for like, she's coworker's out again. And now I'm a parent. I'm like, you can't just like put the baby in the corner and I know that's ridiculous and an extreme, but like
you don't get it until you've done it. You really don't.
I've like told my therapist, like one of the things that I need from a therapist is someone who is also a mother, because I need to know that you understand what I'm going through before I can trust your advice on something and trust your perspective.
Religion's another lens. There's a bunch of them. And we're just kind of talking about the very basic identity lenses. There's all kinds, like publisher is not a standard one. There's all kinds of things that you can only really learn them by either going through them, seeing someone go through them. I'll give a really clear-cut example. When I first came into board games, I'm a very confident guy. I am brash.
No.
So I entered this field with all this confidence and relatively quickly had some success. And it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that people would resent me for that. Which sounds stupid, but like I wouldn't resent someone for coming in and having success. Like that doesn't make sense to me. But there were people who to this day feel like I didn't earn my place in board games. Like I didn't pay my dues. I wasn't around for 10 years before a success, which is the correct way to do it. Flip 7 is one of the best games ever made. Have you played it yet? It's so good.
No, I need to.
You'll really love it. I should have played
it
with it when I was there. I just played it this morning with my son and my assistant, and it's so good. And the guy who made it, I don't know, maybe he was around for 20 years, but from my perspective, I'd never heard of him, and now he has the hit game of the summer. And I'm like, good on him. Eric Olson, I assume you're listening. Amazing work. You've made a fantastic game that I love. You've created so much joy and happiness. But I guarantee there are people who have the lens of like resentment or bitterness or didn't pay their dues. Let's call it the didn't pay their dues lens, who are like, that game sucks because he wasn't around for 10 years first, which makes no logical sense. He didn't earn it.
Well, and the people on the Target, like the people walking through Target saying that game looks like fun and buying it, they don't give a crap if you've been in the industry for 5 years or for 5 seconds, right? It doesn't matter.
So there's a million lenses, and unfortunately we cannot list all of them, but the more you have in your little lens box, the more useful it is. The other thing I use the lens theory for is people who find a lens and permanently attach it, and that's all they can view the world through.
I think that it's one thing to have this happen accidentally, like you were viewing all animals through your I hate animals lens, right? But it's another thing to be
example, perfect example.
I just thought about that all by myself. But it's another thing to be like willing to say, oh, I have these glasses on. I did not realize. I'm going to take them off now. It's kind of like when you've got sunglasses on and you're kind of get used to everything being dark, and then you take them off and it's like, oh, things are bright again.
There's a website that's called like, there's one called Does the Dog Die? Or like, oh no, it was about some form of representation. I'm going to make something up. It was about the representation of short redheaded people. And so they would rate movies out of 5 based entirely on the representation of short redheaded people. And on one hand, that's a really useful thing if you are specifically looking for films about short-redheaded people. But coming from the outside, I was like, what a bizarre rating system. Oh, there's a book that everyone loves. I won't name it because I don't think that's good form. And I was reading it and I was like, this book is hot garbage. Like, I don't understand why people are loving this book so much. And so I actually stopped reading. I DNF'd it, did not finish. And I went online and I read a plot synopsis. And at the end, 2 of the female characters get together. And I was like, oh, there's so little lesbian representation, especially in this genre, that people who were there who had that's what they want lens, which is, again, completely valid. They were all going and rating it 5 stars. So this kind of averagely written book had these phenomenally good reviews because of these people with a one specific lens.
But recognizing that that's just not for you. And that's great.
Yes.
All media doesn't have to be for us, right?
Don't go to your friend who is like, it's because you're a woman. And you're like, I don't think it is. Like, no, it's because you're a woman, Nicole. That's what it is. And it's like, cool. That's not helpful. You want someone who can, like the optometrist, cycle through the lenses and help you approach it from a bunch of different angles. I was saying that you and I are in this fortunate position that we're not that entangled. And you were talking about your therapist who is literally like, you pay them to be this person for you. What do you do when it's a tense situation where like you're living together, like with a partner, or you're traveling with someone, or you're working with someone in a high intense environment and you can't just disconnect and come back 6 weeks later and talk about it then? How do you apply zooming out in that situation?
For me, remove myself from the situation immediately, like within reason. Like obviously if you're on the highway with kids in the car, you don't just jump out, right? But acknowledge that no one's going to have a productive conversation when emotions are so high. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter if you both have, it doesn't matter if you both have the best communication in the world. It's not going to happen. And then as soon as you're like realistically able, because obviously time's probably of the essence, address it. But when you're calm, as calm as you can be.
We talked earlier about like having people in your life understand the zoom out vernacular and how pause is inextricably linked. It's so important that you have people who are okay with the pause. Like, I'm sure you've been in that situation of like, hey, can we talk about this later? No, I want to talk about it now. It's just
I've been the person who's like that. Like, I was really emotionally mature in my previous relationships, obviously. I grew up. Yeah, I was born at 35 years old.
You were born perfect, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was definitely that kind of person who like needed the attention. Like if I were to zoom out, it was about needing attention. And so this person didn't ask me to pause, but if they had, I absolutely would have seen that as I don't want to give you the attention that you're seeking. And that would have been directly in conflict with what I was actually upset about.
Yeah, this is where the multiple levels of zoom out can happen. Because you're like, hey, can we pause? And they're like, no. And you're like, okay, well, now we need to talk about why we can't pause. So we're already 2 levels up. There have literally been conversations you and I have had where we've gone up like 5 levels. We've been like, whoa, hang on. Yeah. There have legitimately been times where it's like, okay, hang on. Talking about it is now feeling spiky. What's happening? And sometimes it's, I don't know for a fact that this is the case, but you've been like, I feel like you're not listening to what I'm trying to say. I'm like, great. Okay, cool. I promise I am trying to listen. I'm not understanding. So now we need to talk about that. And you can go up and up and up and up until eventually like you will reach maximum zoom out.
Sometimes the maximum zoom out is just like, I don't like you as a human.
You are not wrong. I think there was, I talked in an earlier episode about Ben, who I made the superhero show with. I remember we would have these like philosophical debates, and it came to the point where I was like, oh, we've worked out it's a core fundamental difference, which was that I valued productivity and he valued pleasure. And obviously we've probably both softened in our time, etc., etc. Like I nowadays I'm like, yes, pleasure is good. Whereas as a early 20s, I was like, pleasure is a waste of time. We should all be doing something all the time. And so eventually our conversations would hit this point of like, oh, it's just a fundamental difference. And that's okay. Other people are not wrong for being different to you. You do need all types to make the world go round. But when it comes to very close or deeply intertwined, actually, we've talked about creative collaboration before. I have stopped working with people because I've been like, oh, there's just a fundamentally different philosophy of work. And that's okay. I just don't want to work with this person anymore. And that's fine. No one's at fault for that. It's just an incompatibility.
Yeah, I used to always think that if people want this trauma response, but if someone wanted to be friends with me, that was only positive. That was only a good thing, and I should invest in that. And it wasn't until I met you that you're like, no, be picky. You're great. And I'm like, yeah, I am great. And
yeah.
And I just realized that even if both parties want to figure out what's wrong, sometimes you just don't click. Like, that's okay. You don't have to force a puzzle piece to fit that doesn't fit.
We have a friend in the golf club who had a partner in the golf club, and we spent a long time being like, no, you and your partner just aren't speaking the same language. Like, you're literally both speaking English, but one of you is what are they called? An asker, and one is a hinter. And you're just not able to have the same conversation because every time you ask for something, they feel like you're attacking them. Every time they hint, you don't even notice because it's just a base level incompatibility. And she got a new golf partner and was like, oh, I get it now. I understand now what it's like to talk to someone who actually speaks your language. It makes things so much easier.
And the amazing thing is, like, once you have that, you just never go back. You never go back. And it's just like, in the same way of having this language, it just opens up your eyes to like, anything less than this is just not worth my time.
I think anyone who like marries their high school sweetheart and like is happy together, I'm like, what a fluke. Like, what are the odds that you actually found someone compatible? Because I'm particularly like an outlier. I am so incompatible with most people. Like, part of my pickiness with friends is that I have I need to trust the words you say at all times. And I need to be able to talk to you about everything if we're going to be close. Because and you've seen this happen, as soon as there's something that's off limits, I don't know how to deal with it. And I have a little short circuit and I break down. And that's why I need the zoom out technology to be like, hey, this thing that we can't talk about, can we please talk about why we can't talk about it? Okay, this is also getting heated. Can we talk about why that's getting heated until eventually, and it's not that I need to lecture you or need to like have conversations you don't want to have. I just need to understand why there's a black hole of conversation. It doesn't work for my brain. And this all sounds like I'm not respecting people.
You're a white male. You don't have to.
I am so picky with people because I need all of these things to be able to have a relationship, whether professional or personal or sisterly. Zooming out, any other hot takes before we go into our segments?
No, I feel like we could talk about this for forever, but I think we hit the important stuff.
The required ingredients are knowing it, being able to pause, and self-awareness. Because with the phone charges, we couldn't talk about it, so we zoomed out, and you were like, well, I think this. I'm like, oh, I see why you would feel like that. I understand why you would feel like that. And I was like, okay, well, now that I understand that I'm coming across that way, that's a conversation we can have. The other thing I want to talk about is sort of how I was saying, like, there are askers and there are blah, blah, blah. There are people who, I think you and I are very firmly where intent is the most important thing. And there are people who the effect is the most important thing. I recently had I wouldn't even say a fight with someone in the golf club. I hurt the feelings of someone in the golf club. And I needed to zoom out and be like, oh, no, I understand why your feelings were hurt. Here's what I was trying to say and here's why I was trying to say it. And they were like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter what you were trying to say or why you were trying to say it. What matters is that my feelings got hurt. Why would anything else matter? And I'm like, I don't, because the intent. Whereas in the case of the logo, as soon as you understood the intent, the problem went away because you and I are so intent focused.
And I mean, there's definitely some circumstances where, like, I don't care if you didn't mean to kill my dog. Like, you did, so
yeah.
I'm mad at 100%. You. Excuse my language. Like, I'd say, like, it's a split. It's really situational. And there's almost no scenario in which intent doesn't matter at all, right? Sometimes it's the only thing that matters, and sometimes it's so tiny, but it's there. And it's relevant.
Well, even in the dog situation, like, assuming I take responsibility and apologize, like, if I didn't know that your dog was allergic to cranberries and I let him have some of my cranberry pie, yeah, it absolutely sucks that your dog is dead, and I was the person who caused the dog to die. But that's very different to me being like, oh, I didn't know you didn't want your dog to be throttled.
It's different. Like, it doesn't fix it. It doesn't mean that you don't have a right to be mad about it.
And expect an apology, and expect a very sincere apology. You know, the two types of people meme? Like, there's two types of people in so many ways, and finding the exact right combination is so difficult. And zooming out can help you be like, oh, they're like, even now, having heard this conversation, you now have the lens of, oh, they're an intent person, whereas they're a results person, where they don't care what you were trying to do. The fact is that you stepped on their toe and their toe hurts. It doesn't matter that you were pushed by a Norwegian tourist. All that matters is that foot hurts. Whereas on the other hand, it's like, how could I have controlled that? Like, they're just two different perspectives.
I can't, like, if someone's just purely effect and not intent, it doesn't matter if it's 95.5%. But if someone just, it doesn't matter if someone hit you and then your car hit mine, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
I can't, because I can't have a conversation with you, right?
Yep, and now that we know that, that's another lens for the toolbox. Nicole, what is on your desk?
I think this person's going to be mad if I don't mention it. So I have
one of your listeners,
my friend from the golf club.
One of your giraffe people.
One of my giraffe people left pens, no words, no comments, no on my desk, and just a pack of pens. I'm like, oh, I could use pens. That's cool. These are nice. They have all kinds of curse words on them, so they're my favorite. So I have some that say,
I'll blur them later.
Please kindly F off. Calm your birds.
Did they do this literally to have it for this segment?
They definitely mentioned that they expected it to be featured in an upcoming episode. So there you go. There you go, friendo. Thank you for the pens.
This is a great way to do sponsors. Today, I don't have something on my desk. I have something on my chest. Right before we recorded, I was at my local cafe, Republic of Pie, and now you can stalk me, I guess. It's a really good cafe in North Hollywood.
He's not worth stalking.
I go there to write. And so I was writing. I was working my screenplays. And I noticed maybe 2 years ago, maybe more, maybe like 3 years ago, that they had shirts for sale. And it said, wear our shirt, get 10% off. So I spent $20 on a shirt for a place that I go to pretty regularly. And over the last few years have gotten maybe $300 off. And the only thing I have to do is remember to wear my shirt when I'm going there. So I wear the shirt, I get my discount.
That's pretty genius.
I know, isn't it great? It's one of these things that I think of as like a mutually I think about it because it's the term. It's mutually beneficial. The other one I think of is like the Starbucks stars or whatever. I use the Starbucks gift card because every time you use the scan to pay thing, you get stars, and it means 1 in every like 7 coffees is free. Again, over the last 5-6 years of doing that, I've probably gotten 100 free coffees. And all I have to do is do the app. Anytime they have a little membership thing, I will sign up. And if I get emails I don't want, I'll just unsubscribe from the emails. But by just entering your phone number or your entering your phone number or your email or whatever, it's one of those things that it doesn't really matter, but also it's free money for the sake of doing a little bit of typing.
Your password, your social security number, it doesn't matter.
Your firstborn child. So that's what's on my chest. What's on your chest, Nicole? New segment.
No.
Today's question from the audience is from Avi. Do you want to read it?
That requires me to remember which of my million tabs I was in. When you get blocked, how do you identify the block? And I love this question because the answer is zoom out.
Yes, you zoom out. So do you have an example of a recent time when this has happened?
I get overwhelmed with paperwork, with obligation, and sometimes it's like, oh, I need to stop being a perfectionist about this thing. It doesn't need to be perfect. Some amount of doing it is still better than not doing it at all. So I just need to stop and just do the thing. Blocked
is an interesting one because it could mean a few different things. I'm going to directly quote the podcast that probably most inspired this one, which is Cortex with CGP Grey and Mike. I don't know what his last name is. CGP Grey and Mike. And CGP Grey is a full-time creative like me, so I love this podcast. It really spoke to me. It changed my life more than any other piece of media. Really, really good show. I listened from the start. It kind of goes downhill as it goes, but the first like 20, 30, 40, 50 episodes are just solid gold. And CGP Grey talks about having a bounce rate, which I think is just a really, again, once you have a name for it, really useful. So it's a really useful term, which is that he wakes up every day to work creatively. That's his job. And you can't expect 100% success at that. So some days he wakes up and after an hour of trying he's like, today's not a day. And he's like, cool, a 2% bounce rate, a 5% bounce rate is completely acceptable. In fact, very, very normal. Working creatively is not like filling out forms, your favorite thing to do. It's not like a job where you can just go in and like, pull the lever. You have to be inspired. You have to have stuff coming out of your brain. And that's not going to be the case 100% of the time. So there's this sort of thing of like write every day, do the same thing every day. That has never worked for me. That will never work for me. I need to bounce from project to project to project. And especially my writing, which has been my full-time career for well over a decade now, I write every Sunday. That's what I try to do. I sit down every Sunday to write. And probably about 5% of the time, I can't get going. And I'm like, okay, bounce rate, like it's acceptable. And I don't beat myself up over it. I don't feel guilty. I'm not like, we've had days where we've not necessarily literally sat down to do the podcast, but both of us have woken up and been like, let's just not today. And that's okay. We overschedule it so that we have room for a bounce rate. If you're doing something creative like a podcast or writing or whatever, and you require 100%, it's going to fail. You need to build leeway into your systems.
Like that.
In no way to answer the question, how do you identify the block? Again, just my feelings. For me, burnout is a feeling of dread. I love working. I love creating. I love being a full-time, all the weird stuff that I do. And when I'm dreading it, that's when I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. And I have pushed through the dread, and that results in proper burnout down the line. So nowadays, if I even feel a hint of dread, I think Austin Kleon calls it filling the cup, which is that sometimes your cup is empty. So rather than try to pour more out of a cup that's empty, go and fill it up. I love watching sitcoms. I love watching YouTube. I love playing chess on my phone. That's my current thing. I love having calls with my friends. I love going on walks. I will, if I'm feeling like my cup is empty, I will go and fill the cup. But how do I identify it? It's just purely, I've been doing this long enough to be like, I don't want to. One more example. I went to the cafe today to write, and I sat down and I was like, I'm not feeling it. I don't want to write. Just don't want to. So I pulled out chess and I played a game. And I put it away and I was like, not feeling it. Pulled out chess, played a game, put it away, started writing. And I actually had to move this meeting back because once I let myself play chess until I didn't want to play chess anymore. I wanted to write. And then I had to move the meeting because I was getting so into the writing that I was like, Nicole, can we be late? I'm on fire. I'm at Republic of Pie, writing.
And I feel like when you hit those moments, even if you had technically pushed through it and forced yourself and you could actually start writing, I find, and correct me if you don't, but I find that I'm not as productive as I would have been if I had just accepted that I wasn't going to do anything for that hour and then crammed on it because I was inspired by it.
Yeah, exactly. I've said before that my best stuff is the stuff where I'm dying to work on it. My game Rolling Deep has 24 hours on Kickstarter. That is a game where I woke up and I was like, this is what I want to work on. And so I just worked on it for 2 weeks straight. And now it's one of my most successful games of all time because it just came from me wanting to do it, not me forcing myself to do it.
It was because it hasn't come out yet, so no one can tell if it's good. I love you.
It's sponsored by Rolling Deep. So yes, that's how I identify it. It's just the feeling. And I think you've maybe made this case to me before. Like, I don't do a lot of screenwriting. I have to really force myself to do stuff like go to the cafe and sit down to do screenwriting. And you've said, Peter, is there a chance that means you just don't want to screenwrite? Like, if it's hard, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. And that is a completely legitimate perspective that reinforces everything I just said. But the difference is that I want to do it so much that it's intimidating.
Yeah, there's a psychological fear of failure that can cause a block. But I think it's the ability to look through the lens of, is this the reason? Are you rules braining the fact that you want to work on screenwriting? No, you actually do. Okay.
Yep, no, it was a valid question, and we had a great conversation about it. I think that's everything. Awesome. Any final blocking shirts, pens, or zooming out? Or lenses?
Nope.
Amazing. Well, it's been great, and I will talk to you next time.
I love you.
Thank you so much for listening to Blueprints for Life. If you'd like to support the show and get advanced sneak previews of upcoming episodes, check out the Patreon in the show notes. If you'd like to write us a question from the audience, the email address is life@blueprints.fm. And if you found anything in this episode useful, please tell a friend. Cheers.